All right, well, it seems like our players are ready in the feature match area, so we're going to go ahead and head on down there and see if they are ready to start the match. And it looks like they are. Both players keeping their hands. And we'll get a better look at everything in just a moment. Scotty Doolittle on the left, 5-color creativity. Damien Hook on your right, also playing 5-color creativity. This is the deck of the weekend so far. Creativity really putting on a show.
We did see Jun take it down last round, so certainly not unbeatable. But the mirror, very interesting because you want to be the second person to resolve creativity so that your Archons force your opponent to sacrifice their Archons.
Right, but there's also a delicate dance of making sure you have enough cards in hand to discard or whatever. And if you are able to randomly creativity first for 3 or 4 because of some treasure ramping with Prismari Command or whatever, you can just empty their hand and then they have nothing to recover from.
There's also Spell Pierce on both sides you have to be wary of. There's Prismari Command, so if you go for a creativity for 2 on like a treasure and a Goblin Shaman, they could just Prismari Command and destroy both in response. So
right.
There's some interesting ways of interacting that both players are going to have to navigate because they're not ways that you normally interact against other decks. But in the mirror, it gets...
All right, here's a question for you. Thoughts on this for a mirror breaker? Fable of the mirror breaker.
Fable, I think, is definitely one of the more important cards, in large part because the Goblin Shaman provides extra mana. So you don't want to let your opponent generate a lot of extra mana and extra permanents. They could put a bunch of Archons on the battlefield and potentially still have a Dwarf or 2 around to sacrifice to your Archons.
The Dwarfs
themselves that way.
The Dwarfs and the Fables both generate these little micro bodies that allow you to dictate the pace of the game. I really like the addition of Fable because along with those Dwarven Mines just gives you the ability to pressure an opponent in the normal fairish way, which oftentimes forces their hand to play interaction in a spot where they might not want to, and then that usually leaves you a breathing window later in the game to resolve a creativity. All right, Huck here going to go no players with the play on turns 1 or 2 just yet. Huck going to go to turn 3, has Renin 6 active.
Very awkward mana here for Doolittle with those 2 early Dwarven Mines. That could come back to bite him later in the game when you just need more tokens to keep re-upping.
Yep. Also, just to check your opponents, because like I said, like the game can dwindle down to just both players interacting not too much, but it just overtaxes the resources. And then whoever ends up having the most dwarves off Dwarven Mines sometimes just wins the game. No 4th land for Doolittle and no plays yet for either player. Huck's going to be the first one to bite. This is an end of turn Prismari Command. Mode's likely going to be loot, make a treasure.
So I'm looking at both players' deck lists, and one thing I'm looking for is Teferi Time Raveler. That would be great in the mirror, allowing you to cast Indomitable Creativity at instant speed without the chance to interact from the opponent. No copies in either main deck, which you do sometimes see in the 5-color lists. But it does look like Doolittle has 2 copies in the sideboard, so we might see those come up later.
All right. Well, that Prismari Command discards a Archon. And what if Damien has a persist here? Looks like he's going to just go for a Renin 6. Let's see if Doolittle has a response. We have a Prismari Command. We have Spell Pierce. Neither of those really handle the Renin 6.
Yeah, you do deal with the treasure with the Spell Pierce, so it's not the worst. And Renin 6 definitely an important card to answer. That mana advantage is going to be big.
All right, looks like in response, we are going to Prismari Command. We'll figure out the modes in a second, but it's not going to resolve. We have a 1-mana counterspell here, and now the Renin 6 comes in. We're going to plus. We're going to get a land and play it, and that means Dwarven Mine for days.
Yeah, and Doolittle's hand does not look particularly good.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had a 4th land, but draws Bloodstained Mire off the top, so that's a start.
Now, that can be a dual land to unlock some colors, but... might end up needing to be a Dwarven Mine to play defense or put some pressure on the Ren.
Looks like his hand is a Archon of Cruelty. I saw a Spell Pierce, a Lightning Bolt, just nothing that interacts well with what Huck is doing. The Renin 6 is going to make sure Huck has a huge mana advantage, and that Spell Pierce is just not going to be good.
All right, and we're going back Huck's way. Fetches a Dwarven Mine end of turn, generates the body. Going to start applying some pressure. Renin 6 is going to keep rebuying the lands, and Damien Huck in the driver's seat. Goblin attacks, or Dwarf attacks, excuse me. 1-mana, 1/1.
Sure, but Bolt on Dwarf, don't care.
Bolt on Dwarf. Things you love to see. Ren 6 going to tick up. Dwarven Mine the play for the turn. We're going to return a fetch land, save it for later. Looks like he's kind of flooded, honestly, though.
Yeah, he's got some lands in hand. I saw a red card at the back that I thought might be a Fable, but maybe it's a creativity that he's being patient with. Oh, no, it's a Bolt. Okay.
Yeah, we got a Bolt. I think we have a
Fancy
bolt
bolt.
and a Leyline Binding.
Yeah, there's definitely a Leyline Binding in Huck's hand, which, you know, is really going to stop anything Doolittle does, because he's going to have a hard time generating multiple tokens. See, the Bloodstained Mire doesn't even generate a token here because he already had 2 Dwarven Mines early. Needs to get more colored sources just to cast spells.
Yeah. Gonna fetch a Tri-Land here. Honestly, no idea. Maybe Zeotor's Proving Ground. That's the only one whose name I know anyway. I'm just gonna always assume that's the one.
That is what it is.
Got him.
So, a Lightning Bolt drawn from Doolittle, and doesn't have the second one to pair up to deal with this Wren, which would have been nice.
Yeah, burned a bolt last turn on a token, maybe afraid of something like creativity while also giving himself a buffer on life. Huck here, looks like he just keeps drawing lands. A fetch land is the play. Looks like he has another Dwarven Mine in hand. Returning another fetch land.
If this Wren ultimates, there's a Prismari command in the graveyard, right? So
yeah, we'll loot for days. Spell pierce everything, loot for days. Game's over, basically. Wren ultimate is powerful, man.
Very, and there's another bolt that could have teamed up with one of the previous bolts to deal with the Wren, but Doolittle still does not have the resources to take this Planeswalker off the battlefield, prioritizing these 1/1s that are going to keep coming back because there's 2 more on the deck, and Wren's going to give you the fetch lands to find them.
Now, one thing what happens when you have a Wren 6 in play, it always looks like you're getting flooded, but mostly it's your own fault, right? Like, you're the one who's getting a land every single turn. It looks worse than it actually is. So while Huck has, 4 lands in hand, 3 of them got returned by Wren 6, essentially.
What Doolittle really needs here is a Leyline Binding to deal with this Wren. Huck could Leyline Binding back, but then the loyalty would at least go back to the start.
Even if you respond, right? Is it not like one of those Vanishing Light type cards?
No, it is. You're right. Good point. So Huck if Huck leaves up white mana, he can just respond to the opposing Leyline Binding trigger.
All right, we're going to move the discard on Huck's side. Bolt, going to go towards the Wren 6, shrinking it down to 4. That's going to keep it off ultimate for a while. Now Huck just discards the land you return. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, it's discarding hand size at this point.
And is reactive with a Bolt and a Leyline Binding, but not a lot of action. Wants to find something like another Prismari command, maybe something like creativity.
Maybe something like Archon of Cruelty.
Yeah, and just hardcast it thanks to those multiple black sources. Okay, well, a lot of live draws here for Huck. Let's see what the play is. Another Bolt. Both players Bolt flooded. Back for 1 coming in. Looks like we're going to trade Dwarven Mine tokens.
Oh, this is our 3rd dwarf bolted of the game.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, but Huck's the one who has resources to spare, so I like that play a lot more from his side than I do Doolittle's.
Right. Ooh, that Wren 6 should be ticking up to 5, not 6. We'll get that fixed in just a second. We could go tell them. It's not going to change too much for this turn, but it should definitely be at 5, not 6.
Yeah, it got brought down to 4 from Bolt on Doolittle's last turn. Okay. Not a lot here Doolittle really can do. Huck's got a full grip, can stop a creativity. I think he's just hoping to get to 8 mana here and cast the Archon in his own hand. Kind of hope it sticks, but that's a bit of a pipe dream. So this game might go on for a little while longer, but Huck has such a significant advantage here that I don't see the game turning around in the other direction.
You need a lot of food for cards like creativity, right? And if you're flooded, you had to play Dwarven Mines early, like, what else is even left to really fuel? Just like Fable the Mirror Breaker? Something like that?
Doolittle aggressively traded here despite being down resources, and it was in an attempt to not lose the game quickly to an early creativity from Huck, but in making those trades, he's kind of left himself without any viable pathway back into the game at all. So I think he just needed to take the risks here and hope that Huck's hand wasn't that good, and that risk would have been rewarded because Huck has flooded.
Yeah, I mean, it was also kind of unfortunate because Doolittle drew back-to-back bolts. Like, the first decision to bolt a dwarf, that's fine. Like, a little aggressive, whatever. The second one, drawing the bolt, it's like, flustered, right? Do it again, fine. The third one, you just got to laugh it off, like, it's tough.
And there's another land off the top from Huck. We're slowly taking this Ren back up towards ultimate. Just not even going through the rigmarole of putting the land back in his hand because he knows he's just going to discard it to hand size. So
also might not have fetchable lands left, you know? Might just
there's a Shadow Prophecy 4/5. Yeah, green, black, red, blue, white. So
a little miniature dig through time here.
yeah.
This card's awesome. I love Shadow Prophecy. I think it's so cool.
Looks like it was for 4. Yeah, it's a Catcher, a Triumph, not a Rogran. So there's actually no planes for Doolittle here. Can't even cast the Leyline Binding were he to draw it. I do see now a Sacred Foundry.
All right, Ren and 6 is the play, so maybe coming back into the game. Got a minus on the token. That's going to basically just prevent any shenanigans from creativity.
Oh, not a Sacred Foundry in Arid Mesa, but that can find a Sacred Foundry. And there is an Archon in Doolittle's hand. I see 7 lands, so we could see an Archon for Doolittle next turn.
Yeah, would need to fetch a Blood Crypt. The Ren and 6 likely going to die to this Lightning Bolt from Huck, though. But might want to hold the Lightning Bolt to prevent creativity. Doolittle has had almost no windows here to resolve a creativity for an Archon, so Huck could be thinking that's what's rotting in hand for Doolittle.
We're figuring out how we want to tap.
I think we're still in step, right?
Yeah,
it's still Bolt.
I think Huck's hand is Bolt, Binding, a couple Ren and 6s, and 3 lands. Got backup Rens.
I like just bolting the Ren. Like, you know, you have the Binding if they do go for the creativity. It's not that. It's not the end of the world.
Are we going to go for a double ping here? That's going to reset Ren down quite a bit. Okay. Just maybe thinking I have enough mana that I can just wait. Maybe I find some other way to deal with the Ren, like a Prismari command.
Damien should definitely be putting a land from his graveyard in his hand. He's choosing not to, but like with the ultimate, you know, you have the ability to use those lands in hand as extra things. Maybe he would still just go update cards. I don't know.
Yeah, but
should still do it
not to bolt the Ren. I think potentially saving it to kill a dwarf in response to a creativity.
Oh, but once Doolittle goes and gets this Blood Crypt here, you know, that's kind of scary, man.
Yeah, maybe that's the sign that creativity is not coming, but Archon is, and I'm free to use the bolt on the Ren. Oh, okay.
Oh, he's disguising it. Now he can fetch the Blood Crypt next turn if the Ren and 6 happens.
Smart. And giving himself a token in case Huck's only answer is his own Archon. So you have something to sacrifice. I guess you can sacrifice the Ren too.
I'll try to sacrifice token.
That is the last Dwarven Mine for Doolittle. I believe there's one more for Huck. So maybe there are some lists that only play 3. Check that one. No, he's playing the full 4, so
Might just be saving it. Doesn't want to expose it to a removal spell.
Yeah. Makes sense. Has the fetch up, so kind of get it if he needs it. Now, here we see the Blood Crypt, and we're going to see an Archon get cast. Huck does have Leyline Binding in hand, but that could get awkward later on if there's Leyline Bindings coming from Doolittle, though he still doesn't have any white mana.
Here's what's going to happen, though. This Archon comes down. Huck has the Dwarven Mine in hand, so this is actually a huge bummer because the Ren and 6 is just going to get popped. So maybe a mistake not playing the Dwarven Mine last turn. The Ren and 6, those going to ultimate is down.
Is that not a fetch land at the top of his stack?
It is, but the Dwarven Mine's
in hand. Yeah. Oh, no.
Now, could bolt the Ren and 6 here during the attack. Doolittle may be making a mistake by not using the Ren at any point. Maybe assume Damien didn't have it, but Damien's been kind of sandbagging it.
Well, we have the Leyline Binding to deal with Archon, so I think he's still worried about a creativity, saving the bolt for that. But now there is a creativity in Doolittle's hand. That said, the last Ren in Huck's hand can take down the dwarf, and that's the last dwarf that Doolittle has access to.
Yeah. Here's Binding for 1 mana. It's going to take care of the Archon. We're going to fetch, just get one of our last few lands out of the deck to tap for mana. Now we need to draw something this turn on the back foot. A couple Ren and 6s in hand, but most of the lands are gone that matter.
Yeah. Huck is still fine here, I think. Just hasn't found a piece of gas, but any piece of gas will do.
Yeah. As both going to take care of the token or the Ren. As Dwarven Mine, so it does have 2 permanents for creativity should it be drawn.
Another land.
Now we're starting to feel the flood. Another Ren. Ping the token.
Yeah.
Bolt should really be taking care of Ren here, I think.
I'm also surprised that Huck discarded a Ren instead of a land to the Archon trigger.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that. Are you sure it wasn't a sacked one? And oh, no, you're right.
Yeah, he discarded Ren to the discard part of it. And just has some extra lands in hand.
Yeah. I'm gonna go have a talk with him after the match, you know.
Yeah.
Just gonna ask
Like
him
no Fable here, no, and no creativity or Archon of his own. Has actually put Huck in an awkward spot. Still holding that Bolt.
I don't mind it. At this point, the Ren is not really representing a ton of value. All the Dwarven Mines are gone. Most of the fetchable lands are gone. And the only thing that's really scary about it is the ultimate, and that's really far away. If Doolittle plays Fable the Mirror Breaker this turn and then goes for a creativity for 1, you want to have that Bolt to protect yourself, I think. Or something like, Crab du Jour, or whatever it's called. Hard Evidence. On the token. Not gonna let it resolve. I guess that's another reason to kill the Ren and 6, huh?
And found a Leyline Binding of his own.
Ooh. Binding your binding, a tale as old as time. Oblivion Ring your Oblivion Ring. Archon gonna eat a Ren and 6.
It's now or never for Huck. He can draw creativity. He's had that treasure token sitting around for most of this game. But the Ren. Well, he still has the Bolt, so we can clear away the Ren, and then if we can put an Archon onto the battlefield, deal with the opposing Archon. And you do see that's 2 copies of Spell Pierce. Is that going to be relevant? We play a creativity for 1 and a Bolt. Yeah, we still have well over 4 mana left over.
Well, Damien is at 3. A creativity for 1 on my own Archon here is lethal if it resolves. So gonna go for it and see if Damien has another answer.
And he does not.
All right, he scoops him up.
Wow.
Yeah, what a turnaround.
Yeah, just never found any gas off the top from such a strong position.
Yeah, brutal stuff just to watch. Draw after draw, another land, another do nothing.
And, brutal to, hold that Bolt thinking he needed it for a creativity, and it never was going to stop a creativity. And the Ren was, I think, quite relevant. Those extra land drops that it enabled for Doolittle at the end of the game. Especially, it didn't have white mana for a long time and needed to get up to 8 to start casting that Archon.
All right, well, while the players are shuffling up here for game number 2 and figuring out how they want to sideboard, I just want to give a big shout out to Apex Gaming. Their home store here in Caldwell, Ohio is awesome. This is the second time Ross and I have been here. They have treated us like family. They have taken us out to dinner, invited us to their homes, introduced us to all their friends and family. It's been a really spectacular time. They also are offering a lot more for payout than what was originally advertised. What they like to do is they like to have a guarantee. This is usually a 1K, but based on attendance, the price scales up. This is actually a $2,550 total payout tournament. First place, $550. Not too shabby for winning a hometown tournament that you got to roll out of bed and almost walk to.
We got players coming from significantly further than that as well.
Well, that's fine. They're trying to qualify for the Apex Gaming Invitational. They're trying to qualify for the Regional Championship in Anaheim. And today's tournament, we're giving away 2 slots to both. The first and second player are going to be qualified for Anaheim and qualified for the Apex Gaming Invitational in a few months.
Yeah. So definitely a lot on the line. And these players sitting at 3-0 are getting close to that point where they are hoping to draw into the top 8, get a nice break, maybe get some lunch, and prepare for that run in the most important rounds. So taking a look at the players' sideboards here, on Doolittle's side, there is 1 Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, or as autocorrect did, Emrakul the Axon's Toronto.
Axon's Toronto, nice. I thought you were going to say something way worse.
Yeah, no. 3 Flusterstorm, 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor, 2 Teferi Time Traveler, 3 Veil of Summer, 2 Nature's Claim, 1 Terra Sunder, and 2 Beseju Who Endures. Personally, I like Flusterstorm just over Pierce. A little awkward against Ren in 6, but
Maybe
much better.
Both. I don't know if it's over Pierce.
There's also Fable. Maybe Pierce is still better.
There's a ton of targets for both. I like just bringing both.
I don't want to. The games are going to go so long.
Just
I don't want to have
your lightning bolts or whatever. Bolt's so bad.
Sure, but there's more. I like the Teferi I mentioned during game 1. I think are great. I think the Jace the Mind Sculptor is good. it can bounce an Archon. I
Alternate
think the
threat.
card advantage is great.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough counter magic to warrant Veil of Summer.
Agreed.
Nature's Claim of Beseiju, there are Leyline bindings, maybe Beseiju because it goes well with Ren. But I do like the Terra Sunder. It can answer a Ren, it can answer an Archon, but can also answer a Leyline binding and things like that. I like that versatility in these long games.
I just think that card's great. It's rare that you get like a card that's a strict upgrade to another card, and Terra Sunder is already like way better than Naturalize. And I know that it's been a long time since Naturalize was playable, but Naturalize was like modern playable for a while. And, this new version is just so sick.
I've registered Disenchanted Vintage, so.
Yeah. I used to play Sealed Cleansing all the time. Sealed Primordium.
Okay, so on the other side of this matchup, on Huck's side, we've got 2 Beseiju Who Endures, 2 Flusterstorm, 3 Veil of Summer, 1 Terra Sunder, 3 Leyline of Sanctity, 3 Leyline of the Void, and 1 Sarah's Emissary.
This Leyline of Sanctity is in Damien Huck's hand. Is it good in the matchup?
So
What's it there for? Just the Archons?
I did do a Google on the wording of Archon of Cruelty, and Archon does say target opponent. So Leyline of Sanctity does stop Archon triggers.
That's sick.
And Sarah's Emissary would as well.
Okay.
So I wonder if the Emissary is in too. But Leyline of Sanctity, could end up in that. Maybe Leyline of Sanctity being in on Huck's side motivates Doolittle to bring in more of those disenchants.
Yeah. Does Doolittle have the alternate threat and the Emrakul, right? So maybe that has to come in if he sees the Leyline. Or maybe doesn't bring it in this game, but like maybe after seeing it.
But Emrakul is so weak against opposing Archons.
That's true, too. That's true.
Now, when you have Teferi, you can set that up. But you only have 2 Teferis, so that gets difficult.
All right, it's a little bit of a guessing game here, but Doolittle here on the mull, maybe to 5, unclear.
Doesn't matter. As long as we have land fetch for this red, mulligans are irrelevant.
Sure, but I mean, if Huck has, Spell Pierce or something for the Ren, the game's over, so.
Not sure if I see a fetch land.
I see Teamer Triumph, I believe, or maybe Rogren.
I think that's
a Dress Down?
I think that's a Veil of Summer and a Jace going to the bottom, so 2 sideboard cards.
All right, Leyline of Sanctity, gonna do some cool stuff. Maybe not this turn, but way later in the game, it's gonna invalidate a lot of what Doolittle's doing.
Yeah. I don't see a fetch land. I also don't think I see a green duel. There's a Rogren Triumph on turn 1. Doolittle might be hoping for a fetch off the top for this Ren and 6 to start going off. Recouping some of that card disadvantage from the double mulligan.
Leyline of Sanctity also a strange one because it doesn't actually do anything, right? Like, it's not an aggressive sideboard card. It's a very defensive sideboard card. So if Damien is going to be on the aggression side of this game, then it's not actually going to help his game plan much at all.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a card that is going to go unanswered. There's a Leyline binding on those sides, so I'm not sure how much I like it, but we'll see how the game plays out. I can see how it can open up lines for you to be a little more aggressive.
Right. You don't mind tapping out so much.
Yeah, and go for the first, Indomitable Creativity, and knowing that your opponent's isn't going to be good.
I believe both players have brought in Dress Down as well. I see that, like, whited out card, and I've seen that one on Magic Online before, and I'm not sure if a lot of other cards get that treatment.
Well, I don't see Dress Down in Huck's list, so
I'm very curious what that white. There's like a card with white writing or whatever. I don't know. It's like a artist proof or something. Right there, that one. Persist? It's Persist.
Yeah, that's Persist.
Okay, cool.
That is a 2 of in both players' lists. Goes well with Fable. Also go with Shadow Prophecy. You can put Archon in the graveyard, which both players are playing.
All right. Huck, 4th land. Doolittle gonna go for a Teferi with the blue up. Spell Pierce from Huck. No response from Doolittle.
Yeah. Teferi would have been great. You could have bounced that Leyline and set up to creativity. But
that's another reason not to bring in Leyline, because it gets bounced by Teferi. That's correct.
You can pitch the Leylines to Fables, so they're not dead cards when you draw them.
That's fair.
And there are 2 white sources in the deck, so you can cast them. But.
All right, fetch up a Door of Mine. We're going to make a token. Now, maybe the shields are down. Maybe Huck goes for creativity if he has it. But Doolittle does have a blue mana up, so it could be anything.
But he didn't fight over the Teferi, so a little bit of cat and mouse going on from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Does have creativity, looks like, so might just go for it, especially with the Leyline of Sanctity out. Like, you feel safe, right? Probably board out Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, you got to assume boarded out bolts.
It's gonna take too much time to play around Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm, I think. So
Well, you get one more land, so not that much time. But you do now. You give your opponent a turn to untap and
right.
maybe proactively deal with his dwarf if there's a Wren. But unfortunately for Doolittle, he has not found a green source or a black source for the Shadow Prophecy in hand, which was that Tree Triumph counts as a green source, but not this turn.
One thing about this creativity deck, the Door of Mines put a lot of strain on the mana base. You have to play so many red sources, and so most of the time you're fetching for one more color instead of two or three more colors.
We see Huck here getting Rogran Triumph, prioritizing his colors over another dwarf.
All right, let's see if Huck wants to go for it now. Creativity for one with a land drop here allows him to play around a Spell Pierce. Instead, just going to go for a Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
A very strong play here that doesn't expose you to as much interaction. Could set up a bigger creativity down the line. I like being patient once you draw the Fable. If you draw a blank, maybe you want to be aggressive on that turn, but Fable is a very strong play here.
All right, we're going to shock here. I think this is maybe a bluff. Just holding up, the potential for extra blue mana, for interaction, Prismari Command bluff. And seems to be Persist, a backup leyline, and creativity.
I'm just saying my life total doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Well, it can come down to that. I mean, we saw it come down to that last game.
Now, does Doolittle call the bluff? Because there's a creativity in hand.
Yeah, but what's it doing, right? The Archons don't resolve.
Oh, yeah, true.
Because there's no legal targets for the ability.
But, okay.
I don't even think you don't get to draw a card.
No.
I don't think you get anything. They're just big guys.
So instead we see a Wren. That'll deal with the dwarf token.
All right, love this Fable to discard the extra ley line.
Looks like a bolt stayed in for Huck. That was the draw for turn. Instead decides to discard a Persist.
All right, finds a backup creativity.
We can attack with the Goblin Shaman and potentially have two targets for creativity, unless Doolittle wants to trade both dwarves. Also get to attack the Wren. The Wren, not super threatening, but as soon as you draw a fetch land is great.
I want to point out, Doolittle could have creativity for two. Pretty safe to imagine you're going to get at least one Archon. And Leyline of Sanctity just kind of shut it down.
Yeah.
So maybe, that card is potential for breaking the mirror wide open. And it looks like
interesting. Huck just going for a creativity for one there. So playing around Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm.
Also notably, no double block because prioritizing the 1/1s for creativity targets.
Yeah, and if Doolittle does that and Huck goes for creativity, you still lose the Wren, right? So just didn't really have a good block. And yeah, Leyline of Sanctity really carrying its weight here. We saw a dead copy get discarded to Fable, so it wasn't that big of a deal, and really did stop Doolittle's best way of getting back into this game. They've just had mana issues here, not having green. They've drawn 6 lands but 0 fetches, so the Wren wasn't that effective. They haven't found black mana for the Shadow Prophecy, so their own creativity was their best way back into it. Yeah, and they also drew Persist, so 2 black cards, no black mana.
All right, gonna go ahead and play tap lands, and we're gonna pack it in. The creativity just really bottlenecked there by the Leyline of Sanctity. So shout out to Huck for knowing the cool interaction against Archon of Cruelty. It just shuts it down completely. They're just 6/6 flyers.
Yeah, much easier to deal with. That said, if Doolittle finds a fetch early to go with that Wren, can get the Shadow Prophecy off, has a lot more options towards answering that Leyline of Sanctity, or at least just stopping Huck and buying time to answer the Leyline later. So I'm impressed by what it did, but not 100% sold at this point. But certainly Doolittle will be bringing in some more answers. I would expect probably Boseju's is just the most flexible answer because it's so good with Wren.
Having Binding and Fairy might necessitate, might not mean you need Boseju, right? Like, it might be nice to have, but what's the cost? What are you cutting?
I don't know. I like cutting bolts. We saw Huck leave 1 or 2 in. I don't think we saw any from Doolittle there in that second game. I have yet to see these Persists do much of anything. That said, Persist is a nice card for getting an Archon onto the battlefield quickly while still leaving up interaction,
Yeah.
which I think is good in the mirror, even if it just hasn't come up so far.
Well, also, once you start doing the back and forth Archon Haymakers, Persist is just another Archon in a way that like is very hard to stop.
Yeah. And then looks like Doolittle does not have... Oh, Doolittle has 2 main deck Transmogrifies. I wouldn't be surprised to see those come out.
Well, if you think your opponent's cutting Lightning Bolt, Transmogrify starts to look a lot better.
But you don't really want to tap out for it and then let your opponent creativity you.
Sure.
Get, Transmogrify is there for the matchups where you need to be aggressive in getting Archon out of the battlefield.
Yeah, and
this is a
faster.
matchup where you need to be patient.
That's true.
So I could see Transmog coming out as well.
Okay. Both players here taking another look at their sideboard. Gonna be shuffling up here for game number 3. Both players sitting at 3-0. A win this round pushes them very close to being able to double draw in the top 8. They need one more win after this to be able to double draw. Both players playing Creativity, a deck that has seemingly been the deck of the weekend. We've seen it really do some disgusting stuff. We've seen it win fair games already, which to me is the sign of a truly great combo deck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure I would classify this as a combo deck. It's not like putting Archon onto the battlefield immediately wins the game.
No, but like it's a 1-card combo. You know?
It's a go over the top measure that even if your opponent has the answer for it, whether it's Unholy Heat, Leyline Binding, and there's a myriad of answers in the modern format, most decks have at least one. You're still generating value off of that trigger from your opponent sacrificing and discarding and you drawing, and sometimes the life swing matters a lot, especially in a matchup like Burn.
Yeah.
Or other aggressive matchups. So it says, this is my thing, but if you answer it, I'm not crippled at all. And in fact, I've still furthered my fair game plan just by putting Archon onto the battlefield. So
Right. Okay, Doolittle drawing the opener. Looks like a Lightning Bolt in hand, so maybe decide to bring some back in. Gonna go ahead and mulligan though.
Mulligan.
Damien gonna take a look. Transmog in hand. Interesting. Table, Leyline. This might be worth keeping if there's enough mana. I'm not sure if there's enough mana sources though.
I see a Dwarven Mine, a fetch land of some kind, and I think a Steam Vent. So I think I see 3 lands.
Sounds good.
Could see the awkward turn 1 Dwarven Mine here.
Yeah, but it's okay if it's turn 1, right? It's like turn 2 and 3 where entering tapped is usually the bad.
I might go for a turn 1 Triumph, hope to draw a land and have the Dwarven Mine for later, but play it on turn 2. Because you don't really have a turn 2 play anyway.
Sure.
You still get to hold up Bolt.
That's smart.
But if I'm
that one's so valuable later.
Yeah. Important thing here from Doolittle's seat is to not get frustrated here. Mm-hmm. I think he's, run on the low side of negative side of variance in a lot of these games. This is his second mulligan to 5. He's had mana issues in all the games, but this is
it's what you sign up for.
Yeah, but
you're running 6/5 color deck. Of course you're gonna mulligan a bunch.
One of the ways to win tournaments is to not get frustrated and salvage every bit of equity you have left in the game. Say I can still win this. Figure out how to marshal your resources in the best way that you can. See if you can't pull this one out, because you definitely pulled out game 1 from a position that I didn't think you could.
Same. I was calling it for Damien Hook early, and then four draws later, 4 lands later, like turns out miracles do happen.
Yeah. The winds of variance blow both ways.
All right. Scotty going to draw a 5-card opener here. Got to put 2 back after looking at 7.
There is the Emrakul.
Okay, well.
I think that one's going to go back.
Another 1-lander? I feel like we have to go to 4, right?
No, isn't that a Ren, though?
Yeah,
this is
no
just to keep and hope to draw fetch.
No shot. 4 cards is better in this.
If you just draw a fetch land, your hand is great.
Okay, well, he agrees with you. We're going to ley line on 1. We're also on the play. That's another reason. I would rather have any 4-card hand with 2 lands.
And there's a Lightning Bolt.
Okay. Damien's going to go ahead and fetch. Going to get a tri-land more than likely. These tri-lands just added so much cool sequencing and modern. Way more than I expected.
Yeah, definitely not cards when they were printed in Ikoria that I thought would be modern staples, but have certainly become that. These 4-color decks and 5-color decks are really, really powerful, and now with the new domain cards from Dominaria United getting even more so.
Shadow Prophecy, Leyline Binding, both just stellar additions to modern that are seeing a lot of play.
We see another leyline get drawn from Huck here, but does have the Fable to pitch that away in a few turns.
Now here's the question. He has the Dwarven Mine in hand, does Huck, but did he draw another land to play this turn to play Fable?
I would assume he's got another land back, but
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't think he does. I think he got a little greedy.
Yeah, that is very greedy.
All right, let's see if he can draw the land, though.
Looks like Ketria and Rogran Triomes.
A lot of potential good draws here. Also has Spell Pierce in hand, so even if he misses land, can just play the Dwarven Mine, sit for a turn, do little, not really doing a whole lot, stuck on one land. No justice.
But is this getting Spell Pierced?
Of course it is. Bang.
That's big because now Huck has that dead leyline sitting in hand.
Yeah, but Dwarven Mine plus Transmogrify might be game over right now.
But there's a Bolt in Doolittle's hand.
Is he going to play around it? He's
yep,
going to say
has
go.
the Pierce, drew the Pierce for turn, so says I can afford to wait.
Yep. See if he can find one more land. Doesn't. Prismari Command. Going to bang the drum. 1 damage in.
Prismari Command is a land next turn.
Yeah. This is going to be easy. I might even main phase loot, but Spell Pierce is the protective element on the Lightning Bolt. Ren 6.
That's a little late for a green source, and it's a tap land, so we can't Teferi.
Yeah.
But does have another Spell Pierce.
All right, but that's going to leave the shields mostly down here, and Huck might feel like, oh, well, you played your Bolt. You played 2 Spell Pierces. It might be time to try, you know, especially with 2 things in hand. Finds a fetch land. If it has creativity, can go for creativity for 2 off the double Dwarven Mine. It's going to go for Transmog with Spell Pierce back. Oh, no, burn the Spell Pierce last turn. Doesn't have it. But
yeah,
here comes Big Daddy Archon. Going to swallow a card out of Doolittle's hand.
Transmog shuffles them in as well. So, but Doolittle has a Teferi in hand. So they're going to be able to play Teferi here, bounce the Archon, get back to parity, maybe make a 4th land drop.
True. But the Dwarven Mine off this fetch land here from Damien's going to kill off the Teferi as well after. Oh, he drew another Spell Pierce too, so he just has the answer rolled up.
He drew Pierce off the Archon trigger?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, Pierce in hand, it looks like.
Oh my god. No. Oh, I think he just had a Pierce this turn.
He just have 2 Pierces?
Yeah. Well, that is probably going to lock this one up for Huck. Yeah. As long as you have a Steam Vents to get.
Oh, I know Steam Vents exists, so. All right, and here we're going to pack it in. Doolittle seen enough. All against the 5, misses a bunch of land drops, ultimately falls to the Transmogrify. And Mr. Huck here is going to be 4-0.